They have another gospel, Geronda. When can a person be considered fair? According to the world, a fair person is one who judges on the basis of human justice. But perfection means being fair not on the basis of human justice, but on the basis of divine justice. For this is when God will bless him. And I do not insert my ego and self-interest into my actions, then, in a sense, I force God to grant me His divine grace. All human justice, even the most perfect, always contains human elements. And as long as human justice exists in the spiritual man, the Holy Spirit attempts to remove it as a foreign body, while the man struggles with ups and downs that tire him spiritually. When he acquires divine righteousness, then comes the glow of purity and divine enlightenment. Geronda. When someone says that he has been wronged and treated unjustly, would it be helpful if I remind him that there is also divine justice? No. It's better to tell him to examine things in a spiritual manner according to the gospel. For if you tell him there is divine justice, he will believe that he has been indeed treated unjustly, whereas he may have treated others unjustly himself. It's true, a heart can be so pained. I met someone who attended church regularly, who fasted and so forth, and had the impression that he lived a spiritual life. In the meantime, although he owned 5 apartments, received 2 salaries, and had no children, he wouldn't give even a drachma to a poor man. So I told him, "You have so many poor relatives, why don't you give them something? What will you do with your wealth? Give some of it to the widows and orphans." And do you know what he said to me? "You mean I shouldn't collect rent from my widowed sister?" When I heard that, the blood rushed to my head. And that's worldly justice for you. Since the children who are going hungry are not mine, I am not responsible for them. I am not unjust. God forbid that I should be unjust to anyone. That's what I say to comfort their thoughts. They're conscious, but they don't have true peace and comfort. With human reasoning and a worldly sense of justice, they remain indifferent to another human being's plight. How can they then experience anything spiritual? There are people who may give away an entire house as a blessing, but will take someone else to court for a mere month's unpaid rent. How do you explain that? Geronda, is it human justice? It's not even human justice. It has only a tiny bit of human justice. Someone will give away 100,000 to one person, and then turn around and drive a hard bargain with a taxi driver, threatening to report him to the tourist police over a mere 1,000 drachmas. How do you explain that? Could it be that they are mentally ill, Geronda? No, they are of sound mind. Could their big gifts be out of pride to satisfy their own ego? That's it. They give the large sums with pride. They do it for their own glory, not for the glory of God. They may even give everything away, but they don't feel love. Today, there is a false spirit. Even spiritual people seek legal justice and still claim to believe and trust in God. My just claim, your just claim. This is the gospel of reason, that strange reason which I wish didn't exist. They say, I don't want anyone to take me for a fool. Even Christians will file a lawsuit against someone else. Even when they are in the right, they should not go to the courts. How much even more so when they are not in the right? This is the reason why some people become unbelievers. They see that one who doesn't go to church or attend vigils will not take someone to court, while another who does go to church and attend vigils will take some poor fellow to court for a small amount of money, just so that he can have what is rightfully his. I spoke to someone who wanted to take another person to court and asked him, "Are you in need? Do you have more children? Are you being forced by your wife?" "No, I am doing it for the sake of justice," he replied. What can you say? It is, after all, a certain way of thinking that was taught in the past by some spiritual groups. For years now, I remember an incident and cannot forget it. There were some nurses who were dedicated lay sisters working at a children's hospital. A doctor needed to do an examination using radiation on one of those infants, and he asked for a nurse to assist him. But none of them were willing to help, because they were afraid of being harmed by the radiation. Since they were celibate, dedicated sisters, they should have helped without question. If they had been hoping to be married, then perhaps it would have mattered. But even if they were thinking of having a family, still they should have been prepared to make a sacrifice. Being the spiritual people they were, they should have vied with each other to assist the doctor. In the end, another nurse ran to help who was not even leading a spiritual life and who was even planning to get married. And she did it because she felt sorry for a sick child. What is worst of all in such cases is that such people are not even troubled by their conscience, since they say, "Such things are not for us. We are here for spiritual things." They may even have the thought, "That person may find comfort in sacrificing himself, but I find comfort in having my peace and quiet," and may even criticize the other person for not being spiritual. But the truth is that Christ is comforted where there is spiritual mobility, the spirit of sacrifice that does not proclaim itself. Geronda. When we see another person going through difficulty, shouldn't we help him any way we can? Of course. But I have observed a certain worldly spirit that has crept into many spiritual people. They have set up their own worldly gospel, a gospel made to their measure, and they tell you, a Christian must preserve his dignity, he must not appear to be a fool. In other words, they deal with everything using a worldly rationality and sense of justice. They insist on getting what's owed them. I'm entitled to it, they say. I didn't harm him, and I don't want him to wrong or harm me. And in the meantime, they have their conscience clear, assuming that they are in the right. And one can see in such a person all the worldly rights. He has no philorimo, he has no sacrifice, he has nothing. He has set up his own gospel, but has no relationship with God. How then can such a person be overshadowed by the grace of God? When serving my term of duty in the army, there was a wireless operator in the Air Force who would come to our company to get his messages. He was a theologian and gave sermons, and we had become acquainted. But everybody referred to him as the Jesuit, because he never sacrificed himself, nor offered the simplest service to anyone. Once in a while, I would say to him, "Since you're going to the air base, why don't you take these messages over to so-and-so?" "No," he would reply. "I came and got my own, and he should get his own." This way he kept his conscience clear by thinking that he had not wronged anyone. But of course we know that Christ does not simply teach. If someone politely asks you to carry his burden for a mile, you should carry it 2 miles, but rather, whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Or again, he does not say, if someone asks for your tunic, give him also your cloak. He actually says, if anyone wants to sue you to take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. Christ says this, but this man, while considering himself to be spiritual, said, I came and got my own, and he should come and get his own. This is like saying, I would be a fool if someone asked for one and I gave him two. Again, I ask, how can the grace of God approach such a person? While in contrast, if the biblical principle is applied, when one who is forced to go 1 mile actually goes 2, then Christ begins to work and the person doing the compelling is spiritually transformed and begins to think differently. My goodness, look at that. I forced him to go 1 mile and he gladly offered to go even further. Such kindness. If Christ had that worldly logic that many spiritual people have today, he would not have left his throne in heaven to descend to earth to suffer and be crucified for us miserable human beings. But hidden within his apparently human failure is the salvation of us all, and what he endured to bring about our salvation. He humbled himself utterly to the point of being slapped and mocked. Prophesy unto us, thou Christ, who is he that smote thee? The Jews were playing a cruel game with Jesus. You know how saddened I was when, as a little boy, I would see the children playing the game hot cockless. Imagine now playing this game with Christ, striking him from behind and telling him to guess who it was who struck him. What a terrible thing. And now we are seeking to have a type of Christianity without the crucifixion. We want to go straight to the resurrection. We are trying to form a Christianity and a monasticism made to our measure. We don't want to be deprived of anything. But if we are to experience the supernatural, we must live supernaturally.